Here's the thing, nobody is born a people pleaser. You don't just wake up one day and think like, oh, that sounds like a great idea to be exhausted, anxious, over-functioning, and responsible for everybody else's feelings. And the reason is because this behavior doesn't come from who you are. Because again, we're not born this way. It's conditioning that we learned from our environments. And in this video, I'm breaking down how narcissistic parenting wires people-pleasing into your nervous system, and why it's not a flaw, and why maybe willpower or having better boundaries hasn't helped yet. And the disclaimer that I'm going to say before I say anything else, before anyone gets triggered by the word narcissistic, let me be very clear about the definition for this video, because trust me, I know this word gets abused online. And I'm not talking about clinically diagnosing your parents through the DSM or whatever it's called. And I'm not talking about calling them evil or malicious people. When I say narcissistic parenting, these are the definitions for this video. Your parents' emotions, and I'm talking about when you were from ages 0 to 18, when you were under the care of caregivers, which are usually your parents, but could be other people. So during your developmental years. And so the definitions for this video are: your parents' emotions mattered more than yours. Love felt conditional. You learned to read other people's moods instead of feeling safe to express your needs. You were praised for being easy, mature, or selfless, and your feelings were inconvenient, dramatic, or ignored. So that is the definition we're working off of. Again, I'm not calling anybody a bad person. They may have done their best and sacrificed a lot, but the overall pattern was that there was no room for you to be a child, and there was no room for your own emotional and life experiences. And I'm qualified to talk about this because I've lived it. I grew up in an emotionally unavailable and highly critical environment where love felt earned. So I became agreeable, helpful, low maintenance, and I developed beliefs like I don't deserve to be loved, my feelings don't matter, my opinions don't matter, I don't matter, because I was treated that way. And that survival strategy followed me straight into adulthood as people-pleasing, burnout, and self-abandonment. So if that sounds familiar to you, good, not good, because I'm not glad that happened to you, but that means I'm talking to you and this video is for you. And just to be clear, I don't always feel comfortable talking about my past because it was extremely painful. So if that is you, I see you, but I do this to let you know that you're not alone and there is hope for the future. So the first thing I want to talk about is you didn't learn to be quote unquote nice, because when I use air quotes with nice, it's because people pleasing is often justified as being nice, but you developed those behavior patterns as a way to be safe, because when you are under the care of caregivers from 0 to 18, in very few cases, you have no other choice. Like, you're legally bound to that arrangement until you turn 18. So to survive in that environment, you came up with survival strategies, which is actually very smart. But the problem is we carry those into adulthood and they don't serve us then. They actually cause us a lot of pain. So the belief that I'm collapsing is, again, a lot of people pleasers justify the behavior as being kind, but it was a conditioning response, because at some point, fully expressing yourself and being who you really were wasn't safe, either emotionally or sometimes even physically safe. So in narcissistic or emotionally immature households, because again, I'm not totally using the clinical definition of narcissistic, but in these kind of households, children learn one thing pretty early on, and that is my needs are a problem. So this is why you adopt the behaviors of being the peacekeeper, being the emotional translator, usually between the adults, the child who doesn't ask for much, the one who anticipates before anyone explodes. And just to be clear, that wasn't maturity, because a lot of times in these situations, we were called mature for our age. It wasn't maturity, it was hypervigilance, because our nervous system learned, if I can manage their emotions, I'll be okay because I feel safe. So now, as an adult, our body is still hypervigilant and we're constantly scanning the room. Are they mad? Did I do something wrong? Am I safe now? And again, that isn't being nice, although you may be a nice person, but that is still being hypervigilant and living on eggshells, which anyone who has done this knows that it's a very exhausting way to live. So my second point in this video is that we were trained to confuse love with performance. And this is a belief that I talk about a lot in my people-pleasing videos. I actually talk about this in my masterclass as well, but this belief is my worth comes from what I do for others. And in homes with narcissistic or emotionally unavailable parents, love is earned through compliance, achievement, helpfulness, carrying the emotional labor of the family. So if you grew up feeling, if I'm useful, I belong, now you're probably over-functioning, over-giving, over-explaining, over-delivering, but inside you still have this sinking feeling that they may not actually even value who you are as a person. And I think subconsciously you know that they may only be valuing what you're doing for them. And here's the part that I feel nobody talks about, so let's talk about it. People can't see the real you if you're always performing. And again, this was an efficient behavior strategy from 0 to 18 when you're under the care of caregivers. But when you are an adult, it's your accountability. Despite whatever's happened to you, no matter how bad it is, it's our accountability to overcome that. And if you stay in these habits of always performing a role or whatever, people are never going to see the real you. And this is important because I always used to feel resentful that like nobody really saw me for who I was, but I was always hiding who I really was. And I was always exhausted. And part of it was because I was always performing, but in that, it's like I never felt like I was allowed to just be myself. And what I want to make very clear for anyone who's watching this, if you are alive on this earth right now, you are worthy as being as you are, no matter how quirky or passionate or eccentric you are. We all have unique traits, and if you are hiding who you really are, not only are you doing a disservice to yourself, you're doing a disservice to everyone around you and the entire world. But my point about this is when you're always performing, your nervous system never gets to rest because you're always, again, it's like that hypervigilant state. You're scanning things around you. You want to see how you can change your behavior to fit in. And it's like you're always like auditioning for a role or performing for a job interview. And I'm actually I think I'm gonna do a separate video on this because it's so worth talking about, because it's so detrimental to believe that your worth comes from what you do, because again, you are worthy of just being. Even if I just sat on my couch all day and did nothing, I am worthy as I am, because again, if you are alive on this earth right now, you are worthy for who you are. And yeah, I'm gonna make a separate video on this, so stay tuned for that. But And it's in my masterclass, because in my masterclass, I cover 3 primary beliefs of people pleasers, and this is one of them. And I give a full list of action items on how you can start reprogramming this belief. But for purposes of this video, lastly, I want to talk about how self-abandonment is the real addiction behind people pleasing, because it's a really dangerous belief, but a lot of times the underlying belief behind all of these behaviors are, if I don't take care of everyone else, something bad will happen. And again, trust me, I get it. This belief makes total sense when you're a child because it keeps you emotionally safe. But as an adult, again, we carry these behaviors into adulthood, and a lot of times they're creating way more pain than emotional safety. So it keeps us trapped. So every time you say yes when your body says no, every time you swallow your resentment, every time you override your intuition, you are sending your nervous system the messages, my needs don't matter, my opinions don't matter. And your body listens. And so this is why, and again, if you are a textbook people pleaser like I used to be, or a recovering people pleaser, which I still consider myself a recovering people pleaser, but when I was a textbook people pleaser, rest didn't fix the exhaustion because it was an exhausting way to live, and I was just constantly on this hamster wheel that I couldn't get off. And vacations may have put a dent in the anxiety, but then you come home and it's business as usual. Boundaries feel terrifying because you are terrified about disappointing other people and having to manage their emotions. And confidence feels performative and not natural. And if you feel any of these things, again, there's no shame. And first of all, there's hope for the future. And second of all, you deserve a life where you don't have to carry these burdens anymore. And you are not broken. You don't need to fix who you are. You just need to come home to who you really are. Because again, if you're in these patterns, you're simply being loyal to a survival strategy that was helpful when you were a child or teenager, but as an adult, it doesn't feel safe to stop. So, here's the truth that I want you to understand. People pleasing doesn't stop when you understand it, because I guarantee you just logically understood everything that I just said. People pleasing stops when your body learns that you can choose yourself and still feel safe. And this comes with reprogramming your beliefs and nervous system education, because there's this initial calming down of your nervous system that you have to do, but then there's regular maintenance. Like I have a daily practice of checking in with my nervous system and making sure it's regulated. And also there will be times when you're triggered and there's emotional intensity, and there are things you can do to get that under control very fast so you can feel safe in your body. And if you've tried therapy, read books, and have done affirmations and still feel stuck, it's not because you're failing, it's because nobody taught you how to stop abandoning yourself in real time. So this is what I'm gonna do. In the next 3 videos, I'm going to go into depth. I'm actually going to take the 3 beliefs that I have in my in-depth masterclass, and I'll do shorter versions of those videos for YouTube, but I'll take the 3 common beliefs that people pleaser have, like if I please everyone, they'll like me, saying no is selfish or mean, and my worth comes from what I do for others. And I'll break those down in a little bit more detail to show you how those beliefs were formed, why it's draining your soul, and what to do instead. So that way, it's just not another performance about being confident or whatever. It's actually dealing with these issues in real time. And I'll also teach you a trick about what to do when you start setting boundaries and start changing these behaviors, and you start to feel the guilt about not managing other people's feelings, because I don't want to promise you that the guilt will go away. I can promise you that it will ease in time, but we are human beings. We have feelings. The goal is to never hide or suppress our feelings. The goal is to feel safe in our body while we feel these feelings. So I'll also go over some ways to manage that. And, you know, it's not the total solution for people pleasing, but trust me, when you start implementing these action steps in real time, in real life, it will give you the confidence and motivation to keep going. And trust me, like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna be 100% cured of people pleasing, but I went from having no boundaries and being a textbook people pleaser to now it's very rare that I fall into these habits. I call myself a recovering people pleaser, but I'm probably like 90% of the way there. And trust me, it is such a way more happy and fulfilling way to live. So if this video resonated for you, then stay tuned for my next series. I'm gonna break it down in 3 videos, and we're gonna break down those 3 common beliefs of people pleasers. So I will see you in the next video.